Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was sitting in the kitchen, back against the fridge, lights off, heat off, hoping the silence would settle my nerves. Midnight, dead cold. The power company don't do grace periods, and they sure as hell don't care about 1-year-olds screaming through drywall. Luke hadn't had a full bottle in almost 2 days. I'd been stretching the formula so thin it looked like dishwater. I knew it was wrong, but what else could I do? Payday was 3 days out, and the last scoop was staring me in the face like some kind of joke. He let out another cry from the bedroom, that high, dry kind of cry that cuts through your spine. I wanted to go to him, but I was empty. Not tired, not lazy, just done. I sat there and listened, fists clenched so hard my knuckles cracked. My phone buzzed under my thigh. Dead screen. I rubbed it against my jeans, powered it on with 5% left. No notifications, no missed calls. I opened messages and stared at my brother's contact. We hadn't talked since I told him about Jamie, how she bailed with all our credit cards and left me buried in $42,000 of debt and a court summons. I hated asking for help. Hated it. But I hated hearing Luke scream more. So I typed, "Need $40 for formula. Can pay you Friday." I didn't even check the number. Just hit send. Then I dropped the phone face down on the linoleum and leaned my head back against the fridge. The cold crept into my neck, into my arms. I shut my eyes and told myself it was only 3 days. I could survive anything for 3 days. Luke's cries were getting weaker now. Not a good sign. Just this broken, tired sobbing. I was about to get up when the phone buzzed again. Thought maybe my brother sent something. He wasn't heartless, just cheap. I flipped it over. New message. "Is your son going to be okay?" I blinked, sat up straighter, checked the number. Definitely not my brother. Quick note. Before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. My stomach dropped. I hadn't said anything about a son, just formula. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the power being out. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wrote, "Wrong number. Ignore. Sorry." 3 dots popped up. "You didn't ask for much. That tells me enough." I stared at it, unsure if I should block them or throw the whole phone in the trash. Who the hell was this? I wasn't in the mood for some guilt-tripping stranger looking to play savior. I typed, "I don't take charity." The reply came fast. "Then don't. Think of it as problem-solving." I snorted. Problem-solving? I was sitting in a dark kitchen, praying a watered-down scoop would keep my kid from getting sick. Problem-solving was something rich people said when they wanted to feel generous. I fired back. "Nice line. I'm not a cause." A few seconds later, "You're not. You're a man who didn't fold." I just stared at that. My thumb started shaking. Not from emotion, from rage maybe, or confusion, or both. Then I don't know what the hell got into me, but I typed out my Venmo handle. I figured they'd send $20, maybe 30, just enough to feel good about themselves. 3 seconds later, I got the alert. $5,000. I sat there frozen, phone trembling in my hand. "Too much," I wrote. "One less thing to worry about," came the reply. Then another one. "Take care of Luke." And that's when my blood went ice cold, because I never told her his name. I sat there holding the phone like it was going to burn my hand. The baby monitor buzzed with static. Luke's breathing had slowed finally, but I could still hear the little puffs of exhaustion from his crib. I kept staring at her last message. "Take care of Luke." I hadn't said his name, not once. Not in that message. Not anywhere public. I didn't post photos. Didn't talk about him online. The only people who knew were the ones who'd already walked out of our lives or decided we weren't worth checking in on. I typed, "How do you know his name?" A pause. Then, "You said formula." Midnight. "You're not messaging your buddy for yourself. Luke's a strong name." I took a guess. I didn't know if that was genius or disturbing. Probably both. But I was too tired to argue. And I had $5,000 sitting in my account that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. That buys a lot of bottles, a lot of diapers, hell, maybe even some quiet. I wrote, "You didn't have to do that." Correct. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I rubbed the side of my face, half wondering if this was some kind of scam. Maybe she was about to ask for my social or bank info, but nothing came. Just that blinking cursor, waiting. "What's your name?" I asked. "Elena." Just that. No last name, no title, no fluff. I said, "Look, I don't take handouts." "Then don't," she said. "Think of it as problem solving." I shook my head and laughed, quiet and bitter. It was the same line from before, like she knew I'd push back and had already decided not to flinch. I fired back, "Nice line. I'm not a cause." I figured that would shut her down. People get uncomfortable when you call them out for playing hero, but not this woman. She replied in seconds, "You're not. You're a man who didn't fold." I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way she didn't talk down to me. Or maybe it was the tiny part of me that was so damn tired of pretending I was okay. Whatever it was, I sent her my Venmo. 3 seconds later, boom, $5,000 hit my account like a hammer. I stared at the screen so long the light started to burn into my eyes. "Too much," I typed. "One less thing to worry about." I didn't write back right away. I couldn't. I just sat there with the phone on the counter and both hands gripping the edge of the sink like I might fall into it. I kept replaying her messages in my head. Her voice, I didn't even know what it sounded like, but the way she wrote it came through clear, controlled, no wasted words, no emojis, just steel. And then there was that name, Elena. Sharp, clean, not soft, not someone messing around. I finally wrote, "You a social worker or something?" She said, "No. Just someone who doesn't walk away from people hanging by a thread." I stared at that one longer than I wanted to. My first instinct was to push her away, tell her I was fine. But I wasn't. Not even close. And for whatever reason, she already knew that. "Look," I typed, "I'll pay you back. You'll get every cent." Her response came fast. "No need. Consider it closed. What you do next is up to you." I didn't know how to respond to that. Nobody says that. Not in real life. People want something, even if it's just the chance to say they helped. "You a parent?" I asked. "No," she wrote. "But I know what it's like to be left holding the wreckage." I stared at that message for a while. Something about it hit too close. I wanted to ask more, but I stopped myself. She'd already given enough. "You live near here?" I finally asked. "Not really," she said, "but I have people who do." That answer didn't exactly make me feel better. "So how'd you see the message?" "Luck. Right place, right time. I monitor a few emergency tags. Someone forwarded it by mistake. Doesn't matter now." I leaned back against the fridge again, blinking hard. Forwarded by mistake. Wrong number. $5,000. It didn't add up, but it also didn't feel like a lie. "Feels like a setup," I said. "It's not," she replied. "It's what happens when someone doesn't look away." I stared at that one until my eyes hurt. The fridge hummed behind me, the air cold enough to make my fingers stiff. I finally pushed off the floor, grabbed my coat, and walked to the bedroom. Luke was asleep on his side, thumb curled near his cheek, his little face all blotchy from crying. I grabbed a blanket and tucked it around him. I whispered his name, just his name. Then I went back to the kitchen and wrote, "Thanks." She didn't answer, not right away. A few minutes passed, then the screen lit up one last time that night. "Take care of him. I'll be in touch." The knock came just after 7, way too early for anything good. Around here, nobody knocks unless it's a pissed-off neighbor or the landlord with some threat taped to his clipboard. I cracked the door, one hand bracing against it, ready to slam it shut. A delivery guy stood there holding a clipboard and a scanner. Neutral expression, faded uniform. He didn't even look me in the eye. "You Jonathan?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, chest tight. He jerked his head toward the hall. "You got 4 boxes." "What boxes?" He gave a half shrug, handed me the scanner. "All prepaid, signed to your unit, need you to click here." I didn't sign. I tapped with my thumb and stepped back, watching him wheel them in one by one. No markings except shipping labels and a barcode on each. No store name, no logo, just box after box, stacked neatly in front of my tiny kitchen table. He nodded once, turned, and walked off without another word. I stood there in bare feet, trying to make sense of what just happened. Luke started fussing from the other room, his usual morning whimper just loud enough to tell me he was up but not mad yet. I went to him first, picked him up, changed his diaper, held him close. He curled into my shoulder like he always did, head heavy, breath warm against my neck. Then I turned back to the boxes. I opened the top one with a steak knife, slow and careful. Inside, formula. Not store brand either. The good stuff. Sealed cans, packed tight, brand new. The second box had baby wipes, 5 full packs of them, along with bottles. Glass, not plastic. BPA-free, imported. Expensive stuff I'd only ever seen online. The third one had diapers in every size from 1 to 4, like she'd guessed I'd need them later too. And under that, 2 brand new sleep sacks and footy pajamas with the tags still on. Carter's, Gap Baby, even a North Face bunting. What kind of person sends North Face for a 1-year-old? The fourth box held more formula, and underneath it all, a plain white envelope. I ripped it open. Inside was a single note, handwritten on thick, creamy cardstock. He deserves better than scraping by. Elena. I didn't move. I sat there on the floor, back to the stove, Luke pressed against my chest. The heat hadn't kicked on, not that there was any to kick on, and I could feel the cold seeping through the floor. We sat like that for maybe an hour. I didn't open another box. I didn't touch the formula. I didn't even pour coffee. I just held him and stared at the corner of the room where the envelope had landed. Eventually, Luke drifted off again, head heavy against my arm. I tucked him back into the crib, then came back and opened my laptop. I typed one name into the search bar, Elena Roth. It only took 3 seconds. First result, Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg. CEO of Roth Strategic Systems, headquartered out of DC, ex-Air Force captain, youngest in her division. One of those real deal, made not born types who'd built her empire out of black coffee and steel nerves, multiple government contracts, defense logistics, high-level consulting, net worth, somewhere around $8 billion, depending who you asked. I scrolled for 20 minutes. Every photo of her looked like a still frame from a war movie. Sharp blazer, tighter posture, clean eyes that didn't blink. This woman didn't just send charity, she ran empires. I looked at the note again. Just a line and her name. No strings, no promises, no guilt. That night I made Luke a full bottle. Not stretched, not rationed. Full formula. Warm with a clean bottle and a soft bib from the new stash. He chugged it like his life depended on it, which, honestly, it probably did. After he fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen again. One light bulb working. No noise except the hum of the fridge and the occasional car blasting by outside. I stared at one of the unopened cans of formula. It sat on the counter like a threat, like it had weight that didn't make sense. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. The receipt at the bottom of the fourth box, folded over once, half stuck to the packaging tape. I pulled it out and flipped it open. Delivery address matched mine. Unit number, street, everything. But in the billing section, the sender's address was listed. It was my old place. The one I lived in 4 years ago. Out in Western Maryland, before Jamie, before everything. before life spun sideways and never came back. I hadn't used that address in anything in years. Not for mail, not for credit, not even on resumes. Somehow she already knew where I'd come from. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking harder than I wanted to admit, and typed, "Why are you really doing this?" The reply took almost a full minute. I could picture her reading the message, thinking it through, choosing each word like it was part of a mission brief. Because no kid should go cold because their mother was a criminal. I didn't type back. Didn't need to. Because that was the first time anyone had said it out loud without blaming me for sticking around long enough to get burned. The next few days were quiet, but not in the usual way. No dread, no panicked counting of change or opening the fridge 5 times like food might appear. Just short, blunt messages back and forth between me and Elena. Nothing flowery, no wasted words. I told her I used to do internal audits for a logistics company out in Pittsburgh. Decent pay, decent people. Until they shut down with a 4-day warning and handed me a 2-week severance check that didn't even cover rent. She asked what I'd been doing since. I told her the truth, bouncing between warehouse gigs and night shifts when I could find someone to watch Luke, which wasn't often. I told her daycare costs more than rent, and I didn't have family I trusted. Friends disappeared once I started bringing a baby to hangouts. No one wants to babysit when it stops being cute. She didn't reply for a few hours after that. I figured maybe that was the end of it. She'd done her part and moved on, but then the message came through. Come to Roth Systems. Ask for Margot. 10 a.m. tomorrow. That was it. No pitch, no explanation. I stared at it for a long time. Then I looked over at Luke, curled up in the middle of the floor on a soft blanket, chewing on a stuffed elephant. His belly finally full, his cheeks round again. I stood up, grabbed the iron, and pulled the only decent shirt I had out of the back of the closet. It still smelled like old interviews and lost hope, but I pressed it anyway. Didn't have a sitter, so I packed up the diaper bag, tightened the straps on the chest carrier, and got Luke dressed in one of the new outfits from the box. Navy blue with a tiny silver rocket ship stitched across the front. We caught the early train and walked the rest of the way. Roth Systems was in this massive steel and glass tower with security guards who looked like they didn't blink. The place made you feel like you weren't important before you even walked in. I stepped up to the front desk, trying not to sound like I was apologizing. "Hi, I'm here for Margot. I have my kid with me, so..." The receptionist didn't even look up from her screen. She pointed toward the elevator. 28th floor. They're expecting you. No flinch. No side-eye at the baby. No patronizing smile. Upstairs, the doors opened into a lobby that smelled like leather and fresh paper. Everything was polished, even the silence. A tall woman with red-framed glasses stepped forward. "You, Jonathan?" "Yeah, sorry for bringing the little guy." She waved that off. "We planned for it. I'm Margot. This way." She walked fast and didn't ask stupid questions. She gave me a tour like I already worked there. Open spaces, quiet rooms, conference areas lined with glass walls. People looked up when we passed, but no one said anything. They just nodded. Final stop was a small room off a quiet hallway. She opened the door and stepped aside. It looked like a damn showroom. There was a crib already set up, a playmat, shelves stocked with books and toys, a white noise machine, blackout curtains on the single window. Everything was clean. Software thought out. "Elena thought this might make things easier," Margot said, like it was nothing. I stood there for a second too long. Luke babbled something against my chest and reached for the sound machine. I swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. Margot smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was professional. "Don't say anything. Elena's in the conference room down the hall. She'll meet you in 10. I nodded. She left. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Elena stepped in like the room already belonged to her. Black suit, no jewelry, her dark blonde hair pulled back tight. Everything about her said focus. The way she walked, the way her eyes scanned the space without lingering. She didn't waste time. "I'm not here to rescue you," she said. I'm offering a contract. 90 days, flexible hours, audit assistance, on-site or hybrid. You pick. She stepped forward and laid a folder on the edge of the changing table. Her hands were steady. Her voice didn't rise or soften. I opened the folder. The rate listed was nearly double what I used to make. Not a typo, not padded with bonuses or vague stock options. Just real money, plain and clear. Why me? I asked. You've worked logistics. You've worked audits. You can read between numbers and spot gaps. That's more than most people here can do. You're sharp under pressure. I already vetted your files. I kept staring at the contract. There's got to be a catch, I said. There isn't, she replied. You work. You get paid. You leave if it's not a fit. I looked up. She was watching me, but not like I was broken. Not like I was lucky to be in the room. Just watching. Measuring. Luke let out a soft whine. I bounced a little without thinking. She glanced down at him. No change in expression, no discomfort, and looked back up. That's when I signed. Not because I trusted her. I didn't. You don't trust someone just because they hand you a miracle. You trust them when they don't flinch at the mess you bring with it. I signed because I didn't have the luxury of options, and because for the first time in a year someone looked at me, and my kid, and didn't see a burden. I kept my head down that first week. Didn't try to prove anything. Didn't join the water cooler noise or volunteer answers in meetings. I stuck to my desk, eyes on the spreadsheets, ears open. Luke stayed in the nursery down the hall, and I checked on him every hour like clockwork. Just enough to calm my nerves, not enough to raise eyebrows. The work was solid. Too solid. Files organized, logs current, invoices accounted for. I'd seen clean systems before, but not this clean. Nothing's perfect, especially not at this scale. But Roth systems looked almost sterilized, like someone had gone through and buffed every single thing to shine just enough, not too much. I'd been digging into facilities accounts when something odd caught my eye. A vendor name, Nexlin Supply, popped up in 3 departments that had nothing to do with each other: legal, marketing, research operations. The amounts weren't big, but the intervals were weird. Not monthly, not quarterly, just scattered. Like whoever was behind it didn't want to leave a pattern but couldn't help repeating one. The name looked made up. No branding, no descriptions in the notes, just line items like general services and hardware replenishment. I flagged it in my head but didn't touch it yet. Over the next 2 days I traced it further. Same vendor, always small amounts. Never over 5 figures. Always different project codes. I stayed late Thursday night. Luke was asleep in the nursery, sound machine humming low. I ordered takeout, set it aside untouched, and went hunting through archived tax records and expense logs from the last fiscal year. Finally, I found it. Nexlin Supply was a ghost. The EIN checked out, barely, but the listed business address pointed to a P.O. box in Delaware tied to a holding firm registered under a different name, Kirkwood Asset Management. I'd seen that trick before. Shells inside shells, no website, no real paper trail. Just enough to fool a junior accountant and slip under automated flagging systems. This wasn't some clerical error. This was a front. I packaged the data, encrypted the files, and labeled them generic enough to get past casual snooping. Then I shut everything down, picked up Luke, and headed for the 28th floor. Elena's assistant was gone, but her office door was open. She sat behind her desk, reading from a tablet, glasses low on her nose, one hand tapping against her coffee mug. She didn't look surprised to see me. I stepped in, lowered Luke's carrier onto the floor next to the chair, and handed her the flash drive. "You've been expecting this," I said. She didn't say anything at first. Plugged it in, clicked through the folders. Her eyes moved fast, scanning each file, each column. Halfway through, she set the tablet aside and leaned closer to the screen. "You suspected this," I said again. She gave a small nod. "I had a feeling. You just proved I wasn't paranoid. Why didn't you investigate it yourself?" "I own the building. I don't dig the foundations anymore." That stuck with me. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. So what now? She looked at me, not with concern, more like calculation, like she was already 5 steps ahead and deciding which path would burn the least. Now you keep digging, she said. No emails, no names, no noise. I leaned forward. You want this off the books? I want it buried under 10 layers before anyone knows it exists. You're good at that. She wasn't complimenting me. She was giving me orders. I nodded. You think it's one person? She shook her head. I think it started as one, but it's grown. These things always do. You want me to find who? I want you to find the rot, she said. I'll deal with the names later. I sat back, eyes on the screensaver spinning behind her. If I do this, I need access. You'll have it. I don't want to step on toes. She smirked. Step on them. Crush them. Just don't leave prints. That should have scared me. Instead, I felt the first flicker of clarity I'd had in months. Like maybe, for once, I was built for the exact thing being asked of me. As I stood, I hesitated at the door. This isn't charity, right? No, she said flat. This is war. I'm just letting you in early. I picked up Luke and left without another word. That night, after he fell asleep in the travel crib next to my bed, I sat with my laptop until dawn, building out a spreadsheet no one would ever see. Patterns, amounts, department crossovers, movement trails. Every time I caught a glimpse of my old self, the one from before Jamie, before debt collectors and court dates, I gritted my teeth and kept going. This time, the work mattered. This time, someone was watching. And if she was right, this company was sitting on a bomb. The next morning, she brought in Keller. No first name, just Keller. Mid-40s, black slacks, boots, and a tucked-in button-down, with sleeves rolled sharp to the elbow. Hair pulled back, no jewelry, no handshake. She moved like someone who already had your password, your search history, and your burner phone number. Elena says you've been tracking internal irregularities, she said without looking up from her tablet. I have records. Payment logs. Device tags, I said, handing her the drive. She took it, slid it into a reader, and opened the files without asking another question. Her fingers barely moved, but the way she absorbed the data, quiet and surgical, made it clear she wasn't just checking boxes. Device sources? She asked. I handed over mine, then pulled up a clone drive on a spare laptop. Timestamps are all in UTC. I kept log chains separate. She nodded once. That was the only approval I'd get. Elena stood at the far end of the room, arms crossed, saying nothing, just watching. Keller spent the next hour slicing through 3 months' worth of back-end logs. When she finally spoke again, it wasn't to me. We'll need bait. Elena stepped forward. HR memo? Keller gave a slow nod. Audit trigger. No details. Just enough to cause a ripple. 2 hours later, one of Elena's techs pushed a fake memo into the CFO's shared folder. Something dry and vague about a vendor audit sweeping through Q3 expenditures. Looked just real enough to be legitimate. Nothing flashy. No red flags. We waited. 90 minutes in, Keller flagged movement. Someone accessed the file from a terminal tagged to Paul Mercer, EVP of Finance, and then again through a remote login under the same credentials. Why would he open it twice? I asked. Keller didn't look up. First to read it. Second to confirm what he just saw. Elena exhaled. No surprise, just grim confirmation. He's the one, she said. He's been moving money through dummy accounts since last fall. Keller found evidence going back 9 months. Delaware shell accounts, partial vendor records, all tied to Nexlin. You sure it's him? Yes, Keller answered, finally turning to face me. No one else has Mercer's admin clearance. He left fingerprints everywhere. I leaned back in my chair, heart kicking up harder than it should have. It wasn't just that we found him. It was how fast it happened once we stopped pretending everything in this place was clean. Why not go to the board? I asked, Elena's mouth tightened. Because 2 of them are compromised, at least. If we move early, it gets spun against me. So what's the plan? She looked at Keller, then back to me. We keep feeding him, keep the trail open, watch who else bites. I should have felt good about it, like we were taking control. But deep down, something else started turning. I wasn't scared, not exactly, but the edge was there now. Whatever game we were playing, it wasn't small anymore. That night, after I put Luke down and started reviewing access logs from the day, my phone buzzed. No contact, just a number. Unknown. I answered without thinking. Walk away, the voice said. Male, low, no accent, no emotion. Roth Systems isn't worth your son's safety. Then the line went dead. I stared at the screen, blood rushing loud in my ears. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I looked over at the portable crib where Luke was sleeping, curled tight under a fleece blanket. His chest rose and fell, slow and steady. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called Elena. She picked up on the first ring. They just threatened my kid, I said. Her voice didn't waver. What number? I read it off. Not one of ours, she said. I'll trace it. You still think this is just an internal job? She was quiet for a beat. I think Mercer's not smart enough to build this alone, and I think someone else knows we're getting close. I leaned against the wall, fist clenched tight. I don't back off when someone threatens me, but I swear to God if they touch him, they won't, she said flat, because they don't know what you'll do. They're guessing. That means they're nervous. Why trust me? I asked. She didn't hesitate. Because you don't owe anyone here anything. That sentence hit harder than the threat. I didn't owe this company my silence. I didn't owe the system my obedience. I didn't owe Elena loyalty either. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something about people like me. People who'd been cornered. People who'd been left to clean up someone else's damage with nothing but instinct and pressure holding them together. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside Luke's crib, one hand resting near his leg, just close enough to feel the warmth. He shifted a few times, mumbled nonsense in his sleep. I watched the window across from us as headlights from the street flicked shadows against the ceiling. Everything in my life before this had been about surviving. Get through the day, don't drop the ball, don't call attention, don't need too much. Now I was bait in a game I didn't fully understand, and for some reason, that woman trusted me to help play it. It wasn't pity in her eyes when she looked at me. It was something sharper, like recognition. At 9:58 a.m., sharp, Mercer walked in like he owned the goddamn building. I watched from my desk, earbuds in, stream running off the private feed Keller had rigged into the conference room cam. Elena had insisted the meeting be recorded. Internal policy, she said. But this wasn't about compliance. This was a trap. Mercer wore a $3,000 suit and a look like he was about to sell her oceanfront property in Nebraska. Smug didn't even cover it. He strutted in, laptop bag slung low, tie perfect, jaw clean-shaven like he'd prepped for a photo op. The man walked like paperwork couldn't touch him. Elena didn't stand, didn't offer a handshake. She sat at the head of the table, fingers laced, zero expression. Nexland's Supply, she said before he even took a seat. Show me the work they've done. He blinked, then smiled like she'd just told him a joke. Facility stuff, low-level operations. You want invoices? Across research, legal, and marketing? She pressed, voice flat. You're using a shell vendor across 3 departments with no overlap in needs. Why can't I find a single human contact tied to them? Mercer didn't flinch. He actually had the nerve to lean back and raise his eyebrows. They're subcontracted. We outsource vendor engagement to stay lean. It's efficient. She didn't react. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and tossed it onto the table like he was laying down a royal flush. You're done, he said, tone casual. I've got logs showing misused funds, off-ledger activity, and internal access from non-cleared staff. And your boy toy auditor? Not even background checked. My stomach turned, but I didn't move. I kept watching. His voice rang through the feed, slick and full of himself. Internal controls hasn't even cleared him through HR. That's a security breach. You really thought no one would notice? He leaned forward, slow and theatrical. You let a guy walk in here with a baby and no vetting. You think that's leadership? Elena didn't blink. She slid the flash drive aside with one finger, slow and deliberate. You should have vetted the people you tried to outplay, she said. Mercer opened his mouth, probably to start another monologue, but the door behind him clicked open before he got the chance. Ava walked in, calm, crisp, holding a folder in one hand and a phone in the other. Mr. Mercer, she said, your badge has been deactivated. Security is waiting in the lobby. He froze, literally. 1 second he was mid-smirk, and the next, his mouth hung open like a glitch. He looked at Elena, eyes darting, unsure for the first time since he walked in. This some kind of stunt? No, she said. It's cleanup. He turned to Ava. You don't have the authority to... I do, Elena cut in. I own 71% voting control. I'm not asking the board for permission to fire someone caught laundering money through fraudulent entities. His face drained, just a little. You don't have evidence. I have timestamps. I have mirrored servers. I have full IP logs and a direct trail to the Delaware holding company you used to wash your payments. And now I have this, she said, lifting the flash drive he just handed over. Thanks for voluntarily submitting false evidence. That makes this 10 times easier. Mercer looked like someone had pulled the rug and the floor underneath it. He pointed at the camera. This is a setup. No, Keller's voice came from the back corner of the room. I hadn't even seen her on the feed until she stepped into frame. It's a sting. You just took the bait. Mercer's eyes went wild. He looked back and forth, jaw clenched, fists tight. You think this ends with me? He snapped. You think I'm the only one? No, Elena said. I think you're the first domino. Ava nodded to someone off camera. A moment later, 2 plainclothes security guys stepped in and waited by the door. Mercer didn't move at first. He stood frozen, weighing his options like there was still a version of this where he walked out clean. Then he grabbed his bag, muttered something under his breath, and walked out like the building was already turning to ash behind him. I shut the feed and sat back in my chair, heart pounding. My hands were damp. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath until I exhaled so hard my chest hurt. Luke was napping down the hall. The nursery cam showed him curled in a corner of the crib, feet sticking through the bars, his little rocket ship onesie twisted at the waist. I stood and walked down to check on him anyway. I didn't need to, but I needed to. He stirred when I picked him up but didn't open his eyes. I held him close, breathing in the faint scent of formula and clean cotton. Back in the hallway, Elena stepped out of the conference room just as I passed. Her jacket was still buttoned, her hair still tight, but her eyes looked older than they had 30 minutes ago. She didn't say anything at first. Finally, I said, "You get what you needed?" She nodded. And more. What happens now? Now, she said, voice low, we watch who runs. By noon, Mercer was officially out. His credentials were wiped from the system, his office was locked, and HR was circling like vultures, pulling together NDAs, audit logs, and whatever skeletons hadn't already been dragged into the light. But Keller wasn't celebrating. She pulled me aside near the break room, waited until no one else was around, and said, "Don't get comfortable." He made copies. Guys like him always do. I nodded. You think he'll leak them? He won't do it directly. He'll try to create chaos from the outside. Rumors, whispers, anonymous tips. That kind of damage is slower, but it sticks. I didn't argue. I already felt it. People on the floor had started looking at me different. Not openly. Not yet. But the sidelong glances were stacking up. Half of them thought I was some miracle hire. The other half thought I was a plant. Either way, I kept working. Elena doubled my access. Full financials, internal controls, back-end review authority. It wasn't written down, but the message was clear. Keep digging, and don't wait for permission. 3 days after Mercer's exit, she held a press briefing. Internal cameras only, no media. She stood at the front of the glass auditorium in her usual clean-cut suit and said, "We've discovered financial irregularities involving senior leadership. An investigation is underway. No questions at this time." That was it. No names, no deflection. Just fact. And the way she delivered it, like a status report, not a confession, told everyone she was still in charge. Later that week, she called me into her office. Luke was with me, strapped in his carrier. He'd started fussing during lunch, and I didn't have time to drop him at the nursery. I warned her when I came in. She didn't blink, just said, "Close the door." I sat. She stayed standing, arms crossed, eyes locked on the window like the skyline had something to say. "I want you here full-time," she said. "Permanent role, head of internal controls." I almost laughed. "That's a stretch." She turned. "Why? You've got people, actual employees, clean resumes, degrees that weren't earned in night school between changing diapers and dodging collection calls." She didn't smile. "Exactly. I've got plenty of people who look good on paper. But they missed this. You didn't." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. She grabbed a folder off her desk and held it out. "Offers in here, benefits, pay, signing bonus." I took it, but didn't open it. "You trust me with that much access?" I asked. "No," she said, "but I trust what you see when you look at a system. You're not distracted by politics. You're not trying to climb anything. You're just trying to survive. That's the kind of clarity I need in this role." Luke squirmed in his carrier. She didn't even look down. I asked, "What happens when the board pushes back?" She raised an eyebrow. "Let them." I left the office with the folder still sealed. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. That night, Luke fell asleep fast. Too fast. Probably overtired from the chaos of the past few days. I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, but didn't touch the keyboard. My head was loud. The kind of loud that doesn't come from noise, just pressure. Then my phone buzzed. One message. From Elena. It was a file attachment. A screenshot. I opened it, expecting another document or approval chain. Instead, it was the original text I'd sent that night in the kitchen. "Need $40 for formula. Can pay you Friday." The timestamp was still there. Battery icon flashing red in the corner. Everything. Under the image, she wrote, "Thought you'd want to keep it." The file name? Origin Point. I stared at it for a long time. Longer than I should have. Then I typed back, "You still think that was an accident?" The dots blinked for a moment. Then her reply came through. "I think it was the first right move either of us made in a long time." I stood at the front of the glass boardroom with 12 sets of eyes pointed straight through me like I still wasn't supposed to be there. Behind me was a screen full of flagged entries, vendor overlap charts, and a breakdown of exactly how much money slipped through their hands while they were busy polishing each other's reputations. No fluff. Just facts. I cleared my throat once, looked around and said, "You asked how it happened. You missed the holes because you were only looking for patterns you expected to see." No one said anything at first. A couple looked down at their tablets like the numbers might rearrange if they blinked hard enough. When I finished, one of the senior board members, gray suit, white hair, no name I cared to remember, leaned back and said, "You made us look sloppy." I didn't blink. I wasn't trying to look good. I was trying to keep my kid fed. He looked away. None of them said another word. The meeting ended with polite nods and quiet exits, the kind that tried to pretend they weren't just knocked flat by someone they hadn't bothered to vet. Elena didn't say much either. Just looked at me as I packed up and gave a short nod that meant, "Keep moving." I headed down the hall and picked up Luke from the nursery. He was sitting in the middle of the playmat, holding a teething ring like it owed him money. When he saw me, he clapped once and gave this goofy, open-mouthed smile that nearly cracked me. I scooped him up, held him tight, and for one short second, let myself breathe. Elena was waiting near the elevators, coat already on. "Let's get some air," she said. We stepped outside into late fall wind, sharp and biting. The city buzzed around us, people yelling into phones, cars pushing through intersections like the light was optional. No one looked at us. We walked 3 blocks in silence. The sidewalk was uneven, cracked in places. Luke had his cheek against my shoulder, thumb in his mouth, starting to drift off. "You ever think how insane this all is?" I asked. She glanced sideways, not stopping. "Every day." I didn't expect her to say more, but after another block, she did. "I don't do backup plans," she said. "Never have. Either you commit or you crash." She stopped walking and looked at me full on. Her voice didn't shift, but her eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. "I'd like you and Luke to stay in my life. Permanently. No build-up, no pitch, just that." I stood there with my son pressed between us, heartbeat in my ears, city noise behind me, trying to figure out what the hell to do with words like that. I looked down at Luke. His eyes were shut now, lips parted, peaceful in a way only babies can manage. Then I looked back at her. "We'll see," I said. "One day at a time." She didn't nod, didn't flinch, just stood there like she'd expected that answer. We turned and walked back toward the building. I woke up to sunlight, not crying. Luke was curled against me, one hand balled around a fistful of my shirt like he'd claimed it in his sleep. His breath was warm even, peaceful. The cheap blinds on the window were cracked open, letting in that soft morning light that doesn't feel like a warning. For the first time in months, my body didn't feel like it owed someone something the moment I opened my eyes. I slid out of bed slow, careful not to wake him, and made my way to the kitchen, flipped on the coffee maker, and used a full scoop without thinking. I didn't ration the grounds, didn't tap the can to shake out every last grain. Just brewed the damn coffee like it was normal, like I wasn't on my last dollar, like there was more where that came from. I sat at the table while it brewed, the smell hitting me before the cup did. My laptop was already open, no shutdowns the night before. I clicked into my inbox expecting the usual. Final notices, credit threats, automated insults. Instead it was clean. 3 vendor audit requests. 1 internal follow-up from Keller. 2 flagged transactions that needed sign-off. Nothing personal, nothing panicked, just work. The kind of normal people get bored of. The news broke around 7. A client rep forwarded the article to me. Mercer under investigation, potential charges pending. Roth Systems being praised for its swift and discreet internal response. They quoted Elena once. Her words were sharp, controlled, surgical. They didn't mention me, not even a line. I didn't need it. My phone buzzed a minute later. "Elena, you okay?" I stared at the screen for a second, then typed back, "Me. More than okay. You?" There was a pause, then her bubble popped up. "Elena, thinking about what happens next." I took a sip of coffee, eyes still on the message. Luke stirred behind me, that sleepy little whine he makes when he's not sure if he wants food or another hour in bed. I typed back, "Me. Then let's figure it out. But no promises." Her reply came through fast. "Elena, no contracts either, just honesty." I set the phone down and walked to the window, picked Luke up from where he'd rolled to the edge of the mattress and held him close. The city outside looked the same, but I wasn't. For the first time in over a year, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. And this time, the choice was mine. Do you think Elena crossed a line helping him that much? Or was it justified? Drop your answer in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.